In early 2026, Chris Packham told the Telegraph he doesn't hate Jeremy Clarkson, called him extraordinarily hospitable, said the feud was overblown. Then he watched Clarkson's farm on Celebrity Gogglebox. None of that lasted. "That's not what a farm looks like," Packham said, watching the opening titles beside his stepdaughter, Megan McCubbin. "Most farms," he said, "are horrible monocultures sprayed with deadly chemicals, ground pumped full of fertilizer, animals kept indoors in crates, crushed, kept in the dark. What Clarkson's show sells," he said, "is an idealistic view that puts the wrong idea in people's heads." Clarkson answered in his Sun column. One word did most of the work: bollocks. Then he went further than a denial. Said Packham already knew better because Packham had seen the farm himself years ago with his own eyes. Welcome back to proper British farming. Here's the collision plainly, because it's the whole reason this is worth 10 minutes and not just a headline you scroll past. A man tells a national newspaper the rivalry is exaggerated. Months later, on a show watched by millions, he calls the other man's entire second career an idealistic lie. Those two versions of Chris Packham don't sit comfortably in the same year. This video is about what happened in between them, and about a claim Clarkson made in his own defense that turns out to be a lot shakier than it sounded when he wrote it. You know the cast. What you need is the pattern. Because this isn't round 1, it's round 4. And once you see all 4 laid out together, in order, you'll understand why this particular blow-up was never really about a cartoon farm on a title sequence. Round 1, November 2023. Clarkson used his column to say he hated the BBC's Planet Earth 3, complaining that David Attenborough's series had become too focused on climate change and not enough on the animals themselves. Packham hit back on social media, defending Attenborough, calling Clarkson, in his own words, posted himself, under his own name, a massive gobshite. Round 2, January 2025. Clarkson mocked Winterwatch, dismissed Packham's environmental activism, said he didn't understand the real world. Shorter exchange than round 1. Same shape. Clarkson provokes in print. Packham responds in public. Round 3 is the one that complicates everything that follows. And it's the round most casual viewers of this story have completely forgotten, because it doesn't fit the narrative either side wants you to remember. Early 2026, Packham gives an interview to the Telegraph and does something nobody expected from either man. He de-escalates. "Everybody expects me to hate Jeremy," he says. "But we worked together, and he was extraordinarily hospitable." He goes further, offering something close to an olive branch dressed as an observation, that Clarkson sometimes sees the need to antagonize a situation to promote a conversation. Sit with that phrase for a second, because Packham is essentially telling you, in his own words, exactly how Clarkson operates. He's not accusing him of anything. He's describing a strategy, almost admiringly. The way one broadcaster clocks another broadcaster's playbook. And then, months later, Packham does the exact thing he just diagnosed Clarkson for doing. He goes on national television and antagonizes a situation. Whether that's irony, hypocrisy, or just two outspoken men being who they are when a camera's rolling, that's for you to decide. Round 4 is where we are now. Gogglebox airs. Packham objects to the opening titles, then widens the attack to farming as an industry. Crates, chemicals, fertilizer. Clarkson responds in the Sun. And this is where the story takes its sharpest edge, because he doesn't just deny it. He makes a specific, checkable claim, the kind of claim that either holds up or it doesn't. And Chris knows his business, Clarkson wrote, because back in 2012 he came to Diddley Squat and spent the day in our woods, foraging and bird-watching. If there had been some animals in a crate being crushed, I'm sure he would have noticed and said something. Read that again, slowly, because it's doing a lot of work in 2 sentences. Clarkson isn't just calling Packham wrong, he's calling him a hypocrite. Someone who's already seen the truth firsthand and is choosing to ignore it for a television audience. That's a serious accusation to make about a fellow broadcaster. It only works if the underlying claim is solid. Now here's the detail that changes how you should read that line. And it's the one nobody covering this story stopped to check. Clarkson didn't take over farming that land himself, or start calling it Diddley Squat, until years after 2012. Before then, the land was contract farmed by a local villager, under a different name, run a different way. So when Clarkson says Packham visited Diddley Squat in 2012, one of 2 things has to be true. Either he's using the name loosely, retroactively, for a piece of land that didn't carry that name yet, or the date itself has drifted in his memory. Neither of those is a small thing to get wrong, when the whole point of the sentence is proving you were there and saw the truth for yourself. To be clear about what this does and doesn't tell you, it doesn't mean Clarkson invented the visit. It doesn't mean Packham never set foot on that land. What it means is that the single hardest piece of evidence in Clarkson's rebuttal, the part designed to end the argument outright, is softer than the headline made it sound. Worth knowing before you repeat it as fact in the comments. This is a story with no filing, no margin, no single number to hammer home. A previous investigation on this channel, the one about Hawkstone's equity, had a hard figure to keep returning to, something you could hang the whole thing on. This one doesn't. What it has instead is two men with a 5-year paper trail of contradicting themselves about how much they dislike each other, and a rebuttal claim that raises more questions than it answers. That's a different kind of story than this channel usually runs. Worth being honest about that up front, rather than pretending there's a smoking gun sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere. There's a third voice in this that most of the coverage treats as a footnote. It shouldn't be. Harriet Cowan, farmer and Clarkson's farm regular, didn't wait for Clarkson to respond. She posted Packham's clip on TikTok, captioned it the BBC's impartial presenter, then followed it with her own message, direct. Chris Packham. Maybe before throwing shade at all farmers, research your facts. What world are you living in? Then she filmed her own farm in Derbyshire. Caption: Can we all show our horrible monoculture farm, please? That matters more structurally than it looks on the surface. This didn't stay a two-man spat between broadcasters who've traded barbs for years. It became a farming community pile-on, with someone entirely outside the original argument choosing a side publicly, fast, using her own farm as the evidence. That's a different shape of story than TV presenter says mean thing about other TV presenter. And it's the shape most outlets missed while they were busy quoting the swear words for cheap clicks. Now the complication. Because pretending Packham has no point at all would be dishonest. Not everyone online sided against him. One widely shared comment argued he was absolutely correct when it comes to corporate-owned farms, the kind the government apparently prefers over family-owned, diversified farms. That's not this channel taking Packham's side. It's this channel telling you the reaction wasn't unanimous, because you'd get a false picture of the story if we pretended it was. And a false picture doesn't serve you. Think about what that split reaction actually tells you. Packham's specific complaint was about corporate, industrial-style farming, not necessarily about diddly squat by name. Clarkson's farm is small, independent, about as far from a factory operation as British farming gets. There's a version of this argument where both men are technically right about different things, just aiming their complaints at the wrong target. Nobody in this row has stopped long enough to make that distinction. That's not a criticism of either man. It's just what happens when a television clip gets 30 seconds to make a point that probably needed 3 minutes. So where does this leave it right now in the middle of 2026? There's no confirmed next column, no scheduled right of reply, no interview on the calendar that either man has announced. What there is a pattern. 2023, 2025, 2026. 3 rounds, roughly evenly spaced. Each one triggered by one man saying something in public that the other one couldn't let sit unanswered. If the last 3 rounds are anything to go by, round 5 is a matter of when, not if. Here's what we actually want to know from you. Packham told the Telegraph the feud was exaggerated, then went on television and reignited it within the year. Is that a man contradicting himself? Or a man who just proved his own point about Clarkson, that antagonizing a situation promotes a conversation by doing it himself? And on the 2012 claim, does a shaky date sink Clarkson's whole defense? Or does the core point still stand, regardless of exactly when the visit happened? Drop your answer below, tell us where you're watching from, and tell us what we should investigate next.